Hi, CG.
Hi, Mom.
How are you?
I'm fine. Are you back from New York?
Yes, I got back from New York. We missed you. We had such a great time. My friend Melissa and I, we walked so many miles. We ate such good food. Oh my gosh, I love the food in New York. And we saw Peter Gallagher's new Broadway play, Left on 10th. It's written by Delia Ephron. It was beautiful. There's just something so special about New York theater. Also, he said to say hi, and he can't believe you're turning 25.
I literally can't believe it either. Don't remind me. But I'm so jealous. I know you were looking forward to seeing Peter on stage again, and that's so exciting.
I know. Melissa and we figured out that we'd seen him on stage in 1992 in Guys and Dolls. Didn't know him then, but that was the last time we'd been in New York. And He's always so good. He's always so good. He and Juliana Margulies brought so much heart to the play, and they had so much chemistry. The story is Delia Ephron's true personal story about finding love again. It's incredibly moving. It's funny. It's messy. It's a beautiful journey of learning how to open your heart again. It was like being a part of her own romantic comedy.
That sounds so good. And you know I love rom-coms. I can't wait to hear all about it.
Well, that's why Peter and I sat down and recorded a whole podcast episode about the play and his remarkable career. So please enjoy this Beyond the OC interview with Peter Gallagher, recorded in person at the iconic Algonquin Hotel in New York City. To see the interview, watch it on our YouTube channel, Beyond the OC Podcast. And if you want to see Left on 10th, tickets are available at telecharge.com or by calling 212-239-6200.
For details, visit lefton10thbroadway.com or follow at Left on 10th on Instagram and Threads, and at Left on 10th Play on Facebook, Twitter/X, and TikTok. It's one you don't want to miss.
Welcome to Beyond the OC. I'm going to explain what that title means, if it's not self-explanatory.
I want to learn everything from you today.
Today we have a very special episode. It's a Beyond the OC interview with, well...
I can't believe you have to look at your notes to see what my name
well,
is.
I could just improv it, but then I was like, but what I wrote is great. Listen, I'm thrilled to welcome my friend.
Alan Dale.
Right? Caleb.
Yeah.
Welcome my friend who's truly done it all, Peter Gallagher. Clap, clap. Golfers clap for you. You know him as the iconic Sandy Cohen, but his career goes way beyond Newport Beach. Since 1977, Peter's performed on Broadway, starred in beloved TV series and films, and right now, he's back on the Broadway stage in Left on 10th, a play based on Delia Ephron's memoir, where he stars alongside Juliana Margulies. We'll dive into his remarkable career, his recent projects, and the life lessons he's picked up along the way. We're here in New York City, and sitting right next to me, very close. Peter, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Mindy, it's great to be here.
I know,
It's always great to see you.
How fun is this?
I know, it's so crazy. I know.
This is the first time I've done this in the podcast.
A remote location.
I flew across the country and came, but, it was also... New York City.
In the famous Algonquin Hotel.
I know.
Where Dorothy Parker and all these great writers assembled and did amazing things.
Is that what it is? Yeah, there's clearly some history here.
Yeah,
we're in the
very
library, guys. We're in the library.
We haven't read a single one of these books.
Have you? You think?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
I doubt it.
They're locked.
Hirschfeld.
I tried. Hirschfeld.
I had a bunch of Hirschfelds.
Did you?
He was the great caricaturist on Broadway.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I would read the paper and say, God, if I could only be in a Hirschfeld someday.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But you, first of all, I miss you in California. You guys moved. You sold and moved, and the whole family's here now, right?
Yes. That's pretty much why we were sitting on the couch, and
yeah,
the first opportunity the kids had, our son shot back to Brooklyn, and our daughter to the West Side, and we thought,
Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine's doing amazing.
She's doing all right.
Yeah.
And Jamie's doing all right.
So first of all, I have 30 different questions for you, and they're in different categories, but my brain can jump all over. There was a family part, so we're talking about it. Let's go to it. No, how's Paula? How's the family? How's the family life here? Did you end up, you don't have to give all the details, but where did you end up?
Well,
living?
We're still back at Camp Gallagher. That's our
Connecticut.
That's
your home.
Our main hang.
Yeah.
And we have a little apartment in the city that we got before I had this job on Broadway. Oh. And so I just walked 10 blocks to work and back, and and I was born here. And so it's great to be home. In fact, I can see the back window and fire escape of my very first apartment from the apartment we have right now. Yeah. It's like looking at a telescope through the opposite end. I say, oh yeah, that's that night I got robbed. Yeah, that night, or that all the people that have been in and out, and this just the experiences. So it's really great to be back, and it's great. And plus, we can see the kids at the drop of a hat, and we do stuff together.
So James is in town as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's not going by Jamie. It's James.
Well,
it's like Mindy Melinda.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, okay. I call him Jamie, and his friends call him.
And
Jamie.
He's directing.
He's directing, he's writing, and he's also now photographing for the London Times, which just fell into his lap a couple of weeks ago. The photo editor called him and said, listen, do you know any photographers in New York? I said, well, I'm a photographer too. He said, show me your websites. He said, oh my God. So he covered the election. He's covered the Timothy Chalamet lookalike contest. He covered the movie Honora. And it's just right up his alley because he's never without a camera. He's always finding a frame and shooting. And I said, Jamie, it'd be like you carried a guitar around for the last 20 years, playing 12 hours a day, and somebody asked you to play a song. He said, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But he's writing a script. I don't want to jinx it because he has the job, but I don't want to.
Okay.
But it's a very, very, very cool sort of cultural icon who's went through a process of a lot of different writers and chose Jamie to write this, and he had a documentary at the Tribeca Film Festival.
That's what it was. He directed it.
Yep.
Right.
Called Songs About Fucking.
I saw you promoting that. I was like, okay.
But it's not. It's about this musician Marc Rebier and his first tour after the pandemic, and it's so good.
Yeah.
And they had one seat on the bus. And I said, Jamie, because Marc knew his work as a filmmaker. He said, could you shoot this tour? I said, we only have one seat on the bus. So we brought 3 cameras and sound recording equipment, shot every frame.
Wow.
And, had fixed cameras and sound and recorded all the concerts and the bus ride across the country. And so knock on wood. And Catherine was just in Anna Kendrick's new movie, Woman of the Hour.
Woman of the Hour.
And she's writing a show with Justin Tranter, who's a wonderful, amazing hit songwriter about this property that she has that, so they're both chipping away. And she'll be in a play, I think, in the fall.
I mean, we were just reminiscing that CG was, so I've known you for 21 years, almost 22 years. Wow. And CG was 3, Catherine was 10, singing Gypsy Rose when she was 10.
Right.
Remember?
Would you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't get over that, how good she was in that.
Yeah, yeah. And now she's, Grammy nominated. I thought she was Grammy winner.
She won a Grammy and a Tony nomination.
Tony nomination. That's what it was. Grammy winner, yes. Right. And just so entertaining. What a lovely, because I follow her on Instagram and she's and TikTok and it's great that we can keep, as negative as social media can be, it's great to catch up with the people that you know in your life and see them grow. And what's it been like? I'm pretty sure that you're the kind of parent that Sandy was, but that allowing your kids to pick their journey and just supporting them through it, because I think that's to me, that's the only kind of way to parent. But
well, I think so. How could you deprive a person of this self-determination? What else do you have in life? And
supporting mistakes or failures is just as important.
And with confidence that if they work harder than anybody else in the room and they hew to their, instincts and expand and hopefully get lucky, that at least they might not end up doing exactly what they thought they'd be doing, but they'd end up in a place that's right for them.
Right.
It's nerve-wracking no matter what your kids are doing. Being a parent is nerve-wracking.
I know.
You worry about them till they'll put you in the ground. My mother used to say, being a parent's the toughest job in the world. There's no school you can go to for it. I did the best I could.
Which is true. And it's like you could say to your kid, and you can blame me all you want, and it might not have been your fault, but it's your responsibility to fix it. Sorry.
Just say, put that on the list.
Right. Because they will
deal with it.
And that's somebody said to me that 2 things. They will blame you for something and you will screw them up in some way.
Oh yeah. But hopefully less than our parents screwed us up. A little bit less anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Or in different ways.
Yeah.
Surprise.
But have you correct me if I'm wrong, did you get to perform with Kath, or do you perform with her whenever you get a chance? or have you done some things together?
Yes, we have. I did a one-man show for a while.
We came to.
I think you.
Wait. Well, okay. I know I've seen you. Was it in Toronto? Did you present it at some point?
Oh, I might have.
Well,
I did sort of a version of it for a rap party or something.
That's what it was.
I've done it in various cities around, and what I did, I offer the kids what I can offer them. In terms of, with Catherine, she finally agreed to do a song with me, and she sang her own song, and I asked Jamie to shoot it. And so he got. So he got sort of some experience shooting live performance or musical performances when I had a full band, and just expose them to what I could expose them to without really being very heavy-handed about. I never sat them down and showed them my work.
Right.
I mean, they haven't. I don't know what they've seen. They came to opening night, but they were not raised on. Peter Gallagher films,
right?
And being when we moved them out from
New York to California,
it was really, I don't know what traumatic is the right word, but it was really, especially because I was Sandy Cohen then. I didn't really understand how being Sandy Cohen and sort of a cool dad was for your kids, and so it was a little tough for them. And
I think when Catherine came on the podcast, and I remember her talking about it, like sometimes it was cool for some kids and it wasn't for others, or teasing or something like that. Yeah.
And so it was, and also just the whole culture was so different from, Riverdale where they were at, which is this wonderful school up, in Riverdale. But where I think I was probably the only actor, the entertainment guy in the class, and so they were all just kids.
Yeah.
But they survived, and they made some great friends.
Yeah, and people tend to think that maybe just because this is your profession and you're like not just a professional, you're a veteran, that you might be guiding your kids' lives, and it's like you're hands off.
You can't, like, you can't guide a kid's life.
No, or especially in performing or singing or
acting. Oh my
or
God, no!
Yeah,
I mean, being a parent, it's an exercise in being powerless.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make anybody do anything.
No. And we can talk all we want, but kids have to have a tangible experience.
Right, and they'll watch what you do. And in terms of opportunities, I don't know how I get my opportunities. I'm not going to create, hey son, here's a job. What they're growing up accustomed to is me not having a job sometimes.
Yeah.
And seeing how much work I put into, an audition or in preparation before every performance, or that they see it as work. They see it as dedication, see it as uncertainty, see it as, trying your best and not, that there's, so you're in contact with not what you'll get. As there's a line in Left on 10th, which I love, all we own is process. You don't own an outcome. Can't predict an outcome. The only thing you have control over is process.
In the moment.
Yes, and what you do to prepare, to work, to be yourself, to live your life. It's all about process. And so you have to be, you have to choose what it is you do, and it's the little decisions you make that contribute to outcomes.
Right.
And still you can get screwed. It's just, and it happens to everyone, it's just the nature of the game.
Well, and what happens in between, because what CG, when she was really young, she was like, Mom, get me an agent. I want to be an actor. And I'm like, well, then we'll have to go to classes and then we'll have to study. And she goes, well, I just want to be a Disney star. She literally said, I just want to be a Disney star. And I said, oh, no. What you see, there's hours and hours and hours of work behind. And, when you hear about Nepo baby, it's such a term that gets thrown around so much. Yeah, you might be able to be introduced. Like my dad introduced me to the casting director in Days of Our Lives. But if you get in the room and you suck, they're not going to, and they look down on it. Like Jamie had to pay his dues on.
Oh yeah, he started in the bottom of the camera department. He worked in two features, and his hands were bloodied from scrubbing cases. And
that's the only way you get respect, if you start at the bottom and you do every single job when it comes to the crew.
It's also how you learn. I mean, you really learn.
Yeah. Oh, CG, you know how I've always had I have fine hair, right? It's fine. I mean, I have enough of it, but it's just started to feel thinner as you get older. That kind of happens. So I started using Vegamour. And I got to say, ever since I started, my hair feels completely transformed. Their Grow Hair Serum has actually given it some life. It's finally looking and feeling fuller.
See, I don't have the issue with not much hair, but I have a big issue with dry hair. And since I've started using Vegamour, my hair feels so soft, especially in this coming Chicago winter. It's so soft and silky, and I just love to run my hands through it.
I know. It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
And with the holidays here, we are both so busy. Everyone gets so busy. But just taking a little time to pamper myself can be such a boost. And knowing Vegamour is vegan and cruelty-free, it makes it feel like such a treat.
I completely agree. And a little self-care goes a long way. I even put one of their gift sets on my list I'm sending to Santa. I mean, they're in these gorgeous gold marble boxes and you don't even have to wrap them.
That's very smart thinking. I might just do the same. I know a few people who would love it. And the holiday bundles, they come with a full-size gift if you subscribe, and that's a nice little treat. And it looks so pretty under the tree.
Okay, but we have to agree we can't just buy each other the exact same thing.
Okay.
It's not going to work.
No, okay. Deal. This holiday season, give the gift of great hair with Vegamour. There's something for everyone, including you. Visit vegamour.com/OC, code OC to shop. That's vegamour.com/OC, code OC. I was thinking about talking to you and I thought, I don't think after every conversation we've had over the years, and we've had a lot, great dinners in Toronto and New York and all that, but I don't think I've ever asked you about your process. But maybe let's get into Left on 10th, why we're here. And like, how did that come about? And first, because it's such a great, I mean, Hollywood's a little bit iffy right now for so many people out of work. But what brought you back to Broadway and how did this process end up? And then I want to know about your acting process. I don't think I've ever asked you about that.
Well, I was very fortunately, Tara Rubin, the casting director in New York, invited me, I'm sure with Susan Stroman's approval, to do a reading of the play. And all I had to do was read the play, and I couldn't put it down. I thought, oh my gosh, this is a great part. And I really thought it was great to be telling a story about people my age, and because there was a big audience out there in the theater that could afford theater tickets and whose life experience wasn't necessarily always acknowledged or seen or recognized. I thought it would be a powerful experience to be talking about people who were on the, sort of the last half of their lives and facing what people face in terms of illness and second chances, and or as my mother used to say, where there's life, there's hope. So that really appealed to me. And also to work with Susan Stroman.
The director.
Yeah. Who
Tony-winning director. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, so she's got more Tonys than Heinz has pickles.
Right.
But she reminds me, she creates an environment that I feels familiar to me from the 70s and 80s, where people were just very accomplished, kind, and there was just an ease and an excitement in the process. And then meeting and knowing Juliana Margulies, who I had never worked with, but we had been friends. We had mutual friends that would often have gatherings, and I'd see her. And she was just she's delightful to work with. And so it's and Peter Francis James and Kate McLuggage in the cast. All between the two of them, they play about 4,000 parts.
Can I just interject? I'm so sorry. I mean, I saw the play on Friday night, and it was just, I left like that warm, fuzzy feeling, and it has so much. Maybe we should tell the audience the synopsis of it, but they were so, Peter and Kate,
yes,
were so impressive. And I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that when we get into it.
Yeah, but Kate has I think 29 costume changes.
Yeah.
And 19 of them are under 30 seconds.
And different wigs. And accents.
Eight different wigs,
yeah.
Accents, places where they're from, and Peter the same. He has, I don't think he has any wigs. So
right.
But
yeah,
as far as I know.
Do you want to tell them, people, or should I read what the synopsis is?
Sure, you can read
okay, so
what
Left
it
on
is.
10th everyone, is based on Delia Ephron's best-selling memoir, which I read, but I didn't finish it at the end. Actually, I listened to her read it on audiobook.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I got to. I'm really glad I did that, because I got to hear more about Jerry as well, her husband, her first husband. This warm and witty new play is directed by 5-time Tony Award winner Susan Stroman and stars Juliana and Peter Francis James, Kate McCluggage. And when she least expects it, Delia, the beloved novelist and screenwriter of You Got Mail, reconnects with a man from her past and falls into her own romantic comedy. What starts as an unlikely spark blossoms into a love story that seems to defy all odds in the face of life's challenges. Left on 10th tells the messy, beautiful, true story of a woman discovering how to embrace the unpredictable and open her heart again. Was that?
Yeah, I think, yes. And it's dramatic because she survives as Delia. Delia was given 4 months to live when she was, diagnosed with leukemia.
Right.
The similar kind of leukemia that killed her sister, Nora. And I find it remarkable. And she and Peter, her husband, whom I play, who is a wonderful man, they come to practically every performance. I mean, it's and their presence is, benevolent and warm and supportive, and I always think, boy, I'm glad you survived.
Right. And at 20%, I mean, I guess the thing that I took away from it as I walked out, the first thing I took away after crying, it was was that I don't have anyone in my family that has had a situation like Delia had, and I was thinking about the power of theater and plays and how important they are to present culture and not only connect with us in a live manner, but also to present things that I wouldn't necessarily have seen or you hear stories of somebody who's had leukemia or it takes a year of their life to do this kind of treatment or such, but then to actually see it performed touched me in a deeper way and educated me, but also created much more empathy for what people in that situation are going through.
And what you discover is that there are so many people in the audience who've either lived through it or lost a spouse, or who've they each lost their spouses and discovered each other. And Dr. Robos, who's an important character, which is a wonderful
blood disease.
Yes, hematologist and cancer doctor. Amazing kid, which saved Delia. When she came to our workshop, it's very supportive, and saw the show, and she couldn't believe how many of her patients were in the audience, and especially those that were on the cusp of deciding whether or not they'd go for a transplant or not, or what procedure. And the show gave them courage. And Delia had a friend who had just had a miscarriage after trying and trying and trying. Was going to give up, and she saw the show and said, "You know what? I'm going to try one more time." And so it's very. I've always said it was similar with the OC. The best you can do is to be contributing to a story that has a place in the world that you live in. Mm-hmm. And I felt that about the OC, and I feel that very strongly about Left on 10th, especially when after signing autographs and you speak to the audience, especially the ones who have a need to connect. Mm-hmm. And you realize just how powerful a shared experience is, and at the very, when theater works, first of all, we get to be there when it's working. We're on stage, which is, and for a moment, nobody feels alone. For a moment, we're all members of the same tribe. And that's a very powerful thing. When I had a dear friend, came yesterday with her 2 sisters, whose husband was, the guy who taught me how to play golf. Was our head golf pro at this wonderful place that he was there at the beginning. I was one of the founders, and Paul Ramey, and he died. I assume it was leukemia. Just about a year and a half ago, and left 3 boys at the age of 53, and left 3 boys. And Tracy was a little on the fence about coming initially, but she wanted to come, and she brought us. Well, bring some Kleenex, and it was powerful for her, and it's powerful for a lot of people. But as you go through those powerful feelings because our show is uplifting and funny too.
Right.
There's lots of laughs, but you realize you're not alone. And so whatever burden you're carrying, whatever pain you're suffering, or whatever loss you're enduring, when you realize you have company, there's something, you feel connected again.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel connected again to the possibilities that life
right.
presents in any given moment. It's so it's like you can't help but. I remember when I was doing Noises Off, our first day of rehearsal was 9/11. Oh. And, a month later, there was still anthrax in the air, and people were saying, Broadway's done. Nobody's going to go to Broadway. It's too dangerous. You're not going to risk, they'll blow up the theaters, they'll do this, that. And we were doing this outrageous farce. I mean, a slapstick farce in the most tragic moments of and it was exactly what the audience needed. They made sounds. Children were mortified at the sounds their parents were making as they were laughing, and people had tears in their eyes because they never thought they'd laugh again. Right. So the power of a live experience, can't be underestimated. And there's no AI. In fact, in our show on Left on 10th, all the beautiful sets we have, they all move by manpower. There's no automation. There's no machinery. It's the old-fashioned pallets. There's a guy on the end of the set pushing that pallet out or moving these big pieces of the machinery. And we're all a team. You see us in wardrobe on stage and well lit and so on, but there's people all over doing things by hand.
Right.
And so it's nice to know as the world rockets forward in innovation and AI and all of these things.
Theater is the place.
There's still, I'm sure there's AI use we have also massive screens, LED screens and, highly technical things. But it's still a place where, that's a real person.
The human spirit is alive.
And we're present. We're all in the room together.
It's going to be a very interesting future. But it's I think we get to a point in our lives. I'm even at the age where I'm here with my best friend Melissa. And
hi, Melissa.
we talk. It's so funny. We get together and we're like, "What's your latest little ailment?" Or these little things where you start questioning. But I think, death is as much a part of life as birth, and when you've experienced it at a young age, and I went through many years in my life where I realized I was living fear-based, and a lot of it was because of the loss of a sibling or a friend. And, after I think it's not a great way to live. Living fear-based means you're living as a victim. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm doing exactly what you're talking about, living in the moment, not in the future or the past or something, but also removing fear of, not letting the what ifs rule my life, because that's so intrusive, but living in the moment and not being afraid of death if it were to come. Of course, the journey could be, painful for everyone, but there was something very, obviously the subject matter is so intense, what we're discussing, but let's talk about the structure of the play itself is similar to her romantic comedies, right? Mm-hmm. It started and Juliana's energy, she started as effervescent and, like a little, when she falls in love, she turns into a little schoolgirl at the age of 72. And even though the subject matter is death and cancer and all these things, but it's so still funny and human and just what life is, messy and beautiful, comedy and tragedy. I'm wearing them right now.
Right. Totality.
Yeah, totality, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Juliana's not 72.
Not 72. Sorry, Delia was in the book, right?
Right.
Yes. Sorry.
Juliana's 42.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm on my 25th annual 30th birthday.
That's good.
There you go.
I'm 104.
Yeah. Oh, our minds never change. Our hair and gravity might take hold, but right. But yeah, like the structure of the play, like what was the process of getting into putting this this play up?
Well, the workshop was key because the structure of the play is unique. It's not structured it's not a 2 or 3 act structure. It's not traditional scenes that lead into different scenes. It's almost like impressionist. It's almost like these moments connected with that. I have to credit Susan Stroman for using elements of light and staging and production design as well as dance and song to lift it up and to sort of almost like it's like a little film that there are dissolves and things flow from one thing to the next and quickly, and all of a sudden you're feeling things before you're told things.
Yeah.
So, those elements of dance communicate so much without telling you. Or the little bits of music and song say so much that 1,000 words couldn't. And so it's I really have to, and Susan Stroman used the workshop effectively. A lot of times I've done maybe 6 or 7 million workshops, Broadway workshops over the years, or stage or things to try out plays, and oftentimes there's the sort of unspoken belief is this is great. All we need is the money, and we are going to Broadway. And that was not. We genuinely worked, genuinely tried things, and Stroh, she's known as Stroh, and Daryl Roth, who's our producer, who has done this before, and so she knows what she's doing, and she brought all of these. How she was friends with Nora and Delia and knew Stroh and put them all together, and is also a champion for women's stories, and so it was really a group effort. But Stroh's vision, and I think she'd even say if she had needed that workshop just to see if it could work, if it might work. And then we didn't have a theater. And then all of a sudden we had a theater and we had to just go. So we only had 3 weeks of rehearsal and there was no rehearsal studio space available when we got, because it had been booked. So we rehearsed about 100 feet below the ground underneath a roundabout stage, 7-foot ceilings and a little black box for each other. And then we brought it out of the ground and gave it to the designers and the crew to do our tech. Then we got it about 10 days later, and still, just that marvelous uncertainty where you still haven't had an audience. You don't know what's going to work or it's all suspicion. But like life, there's very little certainty. And so the process was interesting and gratifying because it was real. It wasn't just like, oh, you kids be quiet. We've got this under control. This is going to be marvelous. And then you open and close in 10 minutes. Yeah. But so I really credit all of the creative staff and production staff for, doing it.
I love that I hadn't thought about it. Melissa and I went and had some chocolate mousse right after the play and around the corner. And we were like, I was like, I'm so fascinated by some of the staging and the presentation and that you just said it was like a little film, and that clicked for me the way, because you have to show passage of time and the montages. Right. And I was like, some of it was going really quick, but but you didn't. It was a very effective to show her illness, but it didn't slow it down. Right. Yeah, it was quick. But then also
breaking the fourth wall as much as we do, and when to break the fourth wall and not, and because it's it can undo you as much as.
I took it as if, because I had listened to her audiobook, I took it as if she was reading to her, the same way she would read her book to her audience. And then also, but your character did the same as well. Like, it wasn't just Delia's character talking to the audience. You're telling the story of our love as well. So I love that Peter, the character is Peter.
I play Peter Rudder.
Have you ever played a Peter before? I don't think so.
I think so. I think maybe in While You Were Sleeping. Somebody I don't know. I don't really keep track of that.
Yeah. Okay. How do you break down I mean, some people, and this is because I'm interested, and I'm sure the audience is interested too, but because I feel like actors are talking more and more in detail about their process, like getting a script. And it's like, I know how I get a script, I break it down, or, moments, memorize, all that. But what's different about film? I've never really do you just learn your dialogue and then live with it? Or do you have a different kind of, do you do backstory? Like what, and also because you're portraying someone who's alive and real. So how did you approach that? And is it different from film and television?
Well, I hadn't met Peter yet. He didn't come into the process until we were more or less up
Done.
on our feet, towards the tail end of the rehearsal process. So it was gratifying to hear from Dr. Robo's. So, oh my God, how did you, that was Peter. How did you do that? So I thought, okay, I'm not too far off. And in the hospital stuff, I said, does any of that make you cringe? I'm kind of making it all up. Is it? No, that was reassuring. But the way I approach work is I've had several great acting teachers in my life. Bobby Lewis, who started the Actor Studio back in the day, and Bill Esper, who was really the Meisner technique, which was so important at a specific period of time, and Marilyn Freed from the Actor Studio, and Alice Spivak, but then I started and studied with Mira Rostova for about 27 years. I studied with her. I worked on some of the OC with her, and she was all about, and she studied with Bobby Lewis back in the 40s, when just at the beginning of the Actor Studio and so on and so forth. And she was born in Russia, and her family fled the Bolshevik Revolution and went to Germany, and that's where she started acting and working with some very interesting people. And then she fled Germany to New York in the 40s. So I always loved Diane Wiest's work, and I wanted to know who she studied with, and it was as Mira Rostova, and I called her up and, may I please make an appointment?
Mm-hmm. How old were you at this point?
I was 30, and it sort of transferred. I mean, it was very frustrating because after studying with her for 15 years, I got very frustrated in that I thought I will never be able to do this on my own. And then slowly my brain started to adjust. But it's all about script analysis and understanding what it is you're saying. If we were talking about Chekhov, she'd pull it off the shelf and read it to me in Russian. And we'd talk about words. We'd talk about, for instance, the notion of when you have a question mark on a sentence, it's very rarely you're actually asking a question. You're really speaking about something that's happened before. Like, it could be, how are you? I could be finding out, how are you? Or I could be lamenting the fact that you just lost a close, how are you? Mm-hmm. You're speaking about something that's happened before and what that is, and sort of understanding what it is you're talking about in any given moment. And so
the thought behind the words is
right.
The words are,
and so, or what event, or I love you. It might be expressing disdain against the idea that I love you. Mm-hmm. Or lamenting the fact that I'm powerless to make you love me. Well, I love you. So it has to do with what's happened before and what's being expressed. And also, occasionally there's words in some scripts that need to go, that sort of obstruct the telling of that story, but they're rarely missed. And if you, and it gets a little easier as you get a little more accomplished for people to, and also I found that with the best, I remember with Steven Soderbergh, when we were doing Sex, Lies, and Videotape, there was a big scene. I had like 3 pages of a monologue before I punched Jimmy Spader. And Jimmy and I were talking about it too. And I said to Steve, I said, I think I should just look at the tapes and knock them out. It's great. Let's try it.
Oh, instead of having the big
3 pages of dialogue. I said, my God, we're done. Let's go shoot some pool. Or working with Mike Nichols when the first time when I was replacing a young actor, and thank God my wife was with me. We went to see this play, The Real Thing, out of town. And I was scared because it was Mike Nichols and Jeremy Irons and Glenn Close and like real A-team that I didn't know whether I'd be able to measure up to, or was I good, even though I had starred on Broadway already and done a lot of things. And we saw the play, and my wife said, Paula said, what'd you think? I said, well, I wouldn't do it that way. I'd do this, and I'd do this, and this, and I think you should be doing this, and then blah, 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 blah. I said, why don't you tell Mike that? I said, what? I can't tell Mike Nichols. I can't, and then I realized, of course, she was right, and I went to see Nichols, who ended up being very close to, and I learned so much from over the years. So I came, hello, Mr. Nichols. Well, what'd you think? I said, well, that's really great. He said, well, what'd you think of the part? I said, well, I liked it, but I was thinking if I were to do great, let's try it.
Right.
And I realized that working with people like that is the easiest thing you'll ever do.
Because they respect
because
what you're bringing.
It's not possessive about who comes up with the idea or what. It's all about the project and how we can elevate this project. Mm-hmm. And so I loved, finally I started to wrap my head around how Mira thought and how she saw text. And I kept studying with her anyway because she was just the smartest person I ever knew. And she was so tough. I didn't know whether she hated me or whether she thought I was any good, or, I'd go and sit, and occasionally she'd make me a little piece of brown bread. Here. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And I was visiting her. She was 90. She died at, I think, at 100 or 99 or maybe 98. I can't remember. And I was visiting her in this convalescent home where she could no longer really take care of herself. And she'd moved out of her apartment on 16th Street. And I'd just visit her and bring her stuff and gas bag with her, keep her company. And one time she leaned over and patted me on the leg and she says, you were my best student. Mm-hmm. And I almost started to cry. I had no idea that, I didn't know what she thought of me. And I was so moved. And I thought, wow. And wait a minute, Mira. What about Montgomery Clift? And she said, he's dead. And so there was, so I love, and I've had my singing teacher, Joan Lader, for almost 30 years. So there's nothing better than, I've learned something from Jack Lemmon when we did Long Day's Journey and Tonight. Just the fact that he wanted to play that role, James Tyrone in Long Day's Journey and Tonight, I just so admired. He was like a terrier. Mm-hmm. He wanted one more chance to get it right. And when we were in London doing the play at the old Haymarket Theatre, we had all these great, powerful scenes together as father and son. And it was a play I'd always wanted to do. And when he was great, when he was he would say, hey, kid, you want to do a little work? I'll buy you a sandwich. And, after the show, we'd go, I said, sure. So we'd see our guests and everybody would leave and we'd go back out onto the stage in this theater, I think, built in the 1700s. It was like acting in a Stradivarius violin. You could whisper on the stage and be heard in the gods. Mm. And he said, I know I was good, but I don't know what I did. How am I going to do it tomorrow? And I said, well, you were telling me a story. Let's just do it again. Let's work on it. And so we'd work on it and, we'd talk about it and so on. And there's only the ghost light in the middle of the stage lighting us up in this ancient place. And I remember once he's getting ready to leave and he's sort of tottering off. And he said, hey, kid, you got anything lined up yet? I said, no, Jack. And he goes, me neither.
Oh.
And he goes, I thought, wow, it's never going to change.
It's never going to change.
Yeah, even for Jack Lemmon.
No.
And, so you learn that.
Yeah.
But I feel, very lucky that I came along at a time where I got to work with Jack and Mira and these people that sort of connected so many traditions from the past. And anyway, that's a long answer to your story. That's how whether it's a musical, a play, a movie, it doesn't matter. It's the same, trying to understand what it is I'm really speaking about.
Right. And television it's challenge. They go through every syllable and it's gone through so many passes by the time it gets to you. And sometimes it's, I always believe that it's my job to just say it exactly. And sometimes it works, just flows. And then other times it's challenging too in television. because it's so quick and there's a lot of exposition.
Yeah, but what you find, like I was so impressed with Josh Schwartz, from the OC when we were working, because he didn't have kids and none of the writers had kids. And he was
writing some good adult.
Yeah, but he was also really receptive. I mean, Paul and I would read the script every Sunday and say, God, if you say that to one of the kids, they should just come and arrest you. It's like when Misha was going to spend the night with my business partner or something. I was like, okay, that's cool. I said, no, get your stuff. You're coming with me right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was responded to that. He was generous with adjusting so that Sandy, I could actually be a father,
right?
Not, a kid's idea of what they'd, whatever. So I really credit Josh for giving me the support and the freedom, especially in that first season, to be, to speak as a parent might.
It's interesting because I don't know if you read the book, but the book that came out Rachel and I did the podcast, and then the book came out, and I learned so many interesting things that I was so curious about that was going on behind the scenes. But Sandy Cohen has, I think, gone down as one of the single best television dads in history. And it's kind of goes without saying why, because I think there were so many kids that were watching it in high school and they thought, I wish my parent was like that or responded to me like that, instead of ruling with the iron fist like Julie did, like Stalin. But that what you were talking about, it represented so many characters that kids hadn't seen on TV before. And they'd never seen a Seth, and they'd never seen a Sandy, and yeah, it was very successful.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wish my dad had been like that. And I think it's
me too.
I mean, it's also, I think it even translates to what's going on right now. I mean, the thing about men, I don't think, a lot of times they don't realize how important they are. They just bear it. They just show up. My dad fought in World War II in the Battle of the Bulge and the Normandy invasion, and his dad was a coal miner. And he and his brothers were the first ones that got an education in their little coal mining town because their mom died early and in my dad's arms, I think, from the flu epidemic, and they took they were hardworking kids, and so they helped them. They all went to Notre Dame. But it's still, I have no idea what my dad carried. Because you
couldn't break them.
No,
they wouldn't talk about it.
And so the irony of it is there was a real deficit for a lot of people in the world, to have a father who would understand or be interested, and I think that's why it resonated. It certainly resonated with me because I say I said the things that I always that I always wanted to hear, but it's still true with men. It's like, the guys in our crew, I know that they're working their asses off and providing for their families, and they're not asking for anything. They're not expecting to be understood, but it doesn't mean they're hurting. It doesn't mean they're a little lost. And, so there's, understanding and benevolence goes a long way for every group, everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, you've had so many varied characters, and up until, I think I always remembered, and up until I met you, you'd done quite a few villains.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Sandy Cohen was really like the first good guy I'd played in ages.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you were...
With a face like this, you were either, you were just somebody you could hate.
Yeah, no. And in The Player and Buddy in American...
Sex Lies and Videotape.
Sex Lies and Videotape and American Beauty.
Oh, right.
And your characters. Well, then Jillian Love.
Yes, that was
sweet.
That was
sweet. But yeah, you've
no one saw it, but it was sweet.
We all saw it. You've seen that one. It was with Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love doing that movie.
Was that a David Kelly? No,
yeah, David Kelly wrote that. It was David
Kelly wrote that, right? Yeah. No, but you're, I know you, that's probably you are, Peter and Sandy are, I think, the closest in real life, don't you think?
Maybe. I hope so.
Maybe.
Try to be.
Yeah, I try to be. But you were talking about, I'm curious how you feel about like now that you're, I don't know. I was just thinking like, what are your thoughts on the new generation of young actors? Because at a certain point you're working with a lot of younger actors, although you wonderfully got to work with Jane Fonda and
Lily
and on
Grace and Frankie.
Grace and Frankie.
Yeah.
But you've worked with a lot of young people as well. Like, what do you think about the new generation? And do you have any words of wisdom for people coming up? Because we don't know how this industry is going to change coming up. It's
yeah, there seems to be. If the guardrails are removed for mergers and so on, there'll probably be 2 entertainment companies.
Right. Yeah, it's just all corporate, and so there's the soul's getting taken out.
Well, yeah.
AI.
And we'll see what happens to unions. And yes, could be all sorts of surprises and changes. I can't think of, I don't know that I can really generalize about the younger generation. I'm not sure that I understand all the things that scare the hell out of them, and that I know that my son and my daughter's generation, they're, for them and a lot of their, their colleagues and people that they have shared experience with, they all are wondering how we can ever be able to afford to have a family.
Yeah.
Or own a home, or
it's a big one.
So it feels like they feel like the opportunity that our generation had all these marvelous opportunities, and of course I don't know about you, but we certainly did have great opportunities, and there was opportunities to succeed, but it was also really challenging, and so it's. It remains to be seen. I don't know.
I have CG's about to turn 25, and
holy shit!
I know.
Really?
Can you believe that? Yeah, but she's a little nervous about the future.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and it's, I used to be pretty much a worry wart. I think inherited it from my mom, but I think there's something.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. Things are genetic, but. I don't know. I think we have the capability to pivot and adapt and survive, but life is messy and it's hard and it's challenging.
Yeah, I mean it's I grew up with the memories of the Depression and World War II were like they happened to me, because they were just so still present in my parents' experience. Mm-hmm. My mom's brother got blown up that she helped develop penicillin during the Second War. She was first generation American, the immigrant was basically an immigrant experience that even I had. And I'm still very close to my family in Ireland. Mm-hmm. But for generations that are removed from that, the presence of that existential threat of when things fell apart, or nearly did, like in the Depression. Mm-hmm. My mother spoke about the Depression. My grandpa, fortunately, was the fireman in the mines, which didn't keep the fires out, but he was responsible for keeping the water out of the mines while the shafts were not being mined. So he actually had a job during the Depression. Mm. And so these kinds of stories, they become part of you, and you understand that your parents had seen the world go off the rails. Whereas if that is abstract or ancient history or something like that's not. I remember I had a number 93 in the draft, and if you were below 100, you were going. And it was, and my brother couldn't wait to go. He was 10 years older than I am. He'd spent years in the Army. But I remember thinking, my mother was saying, we're going to Canada.
Really?
But she wasn't going to lose another person to a war. But I mean, we didn't have to make the decision because thank goodness the war was over just in the, in the nick of time. But I lived with that absolute, reality of contemplating a future that would be out of my hands. And so if once that becomes an abstraction or ancient history, you're unmoored so you can think about anything. You can think anything's possible. Nothing's going to hurt me.
My generation was the first generation that didn't have a draft.
Right. That's right. Right. And so you're like, oh, they do that. That's not going to be
that
me.
wasn't. That's not us.
And I still remember my uncle hobbling around with part of a leg, and my dad's military gear in the basement, and the stories not from him, because he never said a word.
The silent generation.
So it's abstract and not real. Whereas it felt, even though I didn't experience it, it felt that way because it just from osmosis from my parents and their generation. So this, it'll be very interesting because, I think people are disconnected from real world outcomes of when things go to hell.
Right. No. And the future is unknown, and it feels like, well, we won't get into all of it, but I'm shocked if, I feel like we're aware of being progressive, and then to feel like we're going backwards is a very scary thought, or there's a lot of people that are afraid. But well, we're coming to a close here. Look, I have all these questions for you, but, I mean, do people always say, what keeps you going? Like, what keeps you returning? And it's like, I think I know the answer to act. Like, when you're an actor, you're an actor. You just, when you're presented with opportunities, you think, yes. And then at one point, my favorite story about you, I think it was our third night shoot. No, sorry. It would have been like our second episode. And we were shooting late at night, and there was something wrong. I found out the night that we were shooting and we weren't shooting, and none of us could figure out why. It was when Ryan was coming up the driveway with the cops, and we couldn't figure it out. And Peter's pacing back and forth and looking at his watch, and it's like 2 a.m, and he just keeps saying, private school, private school, private school. Like, I'm doing this for private school. But we didn't know that that's when Doug Lyman's dog had been kidnapped and the FBI were going after it. That
so
story.
Amazing.
I didn't know that was why that we were delayed.
I don't think I knew about that story, but didn't realize it happened then. What an amazing story. Lewis, his brother, who arranged that, we lived in the same building on 71st Street.
Oh, did you really?
He lived upstairs. And he was a prosecutor, and
wow.
It was very cool. I love Doug.
Yeah,
that was great.
If you want more details about what I'm talking about, read the OC, the oral history book. There's some like little tidbits in there. It's like, so that's why we were not shooting because the director's dog had been kidnapped and was being ransomed, and the FBI was involved.
They pulled it off. It was amazing.
Yeah. Listen, there are so many things, and I know we're getting close to an hour here. We've been talking. But I do have, first of all, I didn't say, give my regards to Paula. I know you did a beautiful article, an interview about success in marriage. And I think that's representative of what we're talking about. And you guys talk about, I mean, obviously you can bring the successful experience of a beautiful marriage, long-term marriage to a play like this as well. And there was a beautiful article not too long ago. You did an interview about your relationship, your long-term relationship.
Well, I don't know which one you're talking about.
Because he does so many.
But it's true. I love her dearly, and she's doing. She just designed an apartment in New York from one of her clients.
Full-time designing
in California. Hopefully she's doing less because I miss her once she gets going, she's busy. Yeah. But now she's just finished that, and she's got. Hopefully we're going to go back up to Camp Gallagher after the show today.
Right.
And
I had to make sure that Alan Sepinwall, the writer of the book, I told him that he had the timeline wrong in Camp Gallagher. He had it in season that we'd done it in season 3 or 4, and I'm like, no, it was after the first year.
Season.
Yeah. But I do have a couple questions from some of our Patreon fans who just wanted to. From Nicholas in Germany, he said, "I wanted to know if that's okay. I wanted to know what your memories about the movie The Man Who Knew Too Little are, and how he came to the project Can Man. Thanks, Melinda." Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, The Man Who Knew Too Little was a movie I did that John Emile directed, whom I had worked with a few years before in Tune In Tomorrow, which was, I think, based on Aunt Julia and the scriptwriter. and it was a movie with Bill Murray, and we played brothers, and it was a great experience. I mean, Bill and I really saw eye to eye in terms of, what the story could be. And again, it was a situation where I was playing this sort of hard-charging, insensitive business guy who ships his brother off to an immersive theater experience to get him out of the way. And it was sort of similar to While You Were Sleeping. I said, why burden the audience with, unless this is a story about a really awful brother, which it's not, because it's a story about Bill Murray. I said, why don't I behave as a brother would? If he's a real master of the universe, he can handle anything. And so why don't I be the best brother I can for my brother while I'm doing all these other things and just have it all fall apart? And so John was open to that, and Bill was really open to that. And we had a blast. And he loves the movie. There were a lot of people who really loved the movie. His family thought it was like one of the best movies he'd done. And Can Man I didn't really ever expect Can Man to ever happen, because we were in Cannes for Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I was actually shooting another movie at the same time in Paris, and came down for the Cannes Film Festival, which was amazing because we won the Palme d'Or with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. And while we were there in Cannes, I've blanked for a minute who made the film, but said, would you do this? These other people are doing this. You just have to do this and do that. Sure, okay. Yeah. And so I did a couple of things here and there, and I guess it ended up as a movie, which I still haven't seen. I haven't either, but I've heard about it. But I was doing this other movie in Paris for Vera Belmont, who has produced a lot of the new wave directors in the 60s, and I was wearing it. It was about Kafka back in the day. And I was putting on a tuxedo in the scene in front of a mirror and doing something, when all of a sudden, it was the day that the awards were announced at the Cannes Film Festival, and from the other room I heard this sex life, and then coupé, and the director cut, and we ran into the other room, and everybody's gathered around the television, and there was Steven Soderbergh wearing a tuxedo just like the one I had on me, receiving the Palme d'Or from Cannes for Sex, Lies, and Videotape, or Sex, Mensonge et Vidéo en français. And it was just like one of those moments of confluence that was fun.
Oh my gosh. You do have some amazing stories. That's why we talked to. Okay, another question. Really quick. Dan, my wife is a huge While You Were Sleeping fan. And do you have a specific memory from working on that film that you'd like to share? Playing a character who's pretty much in a coma. The majority of the film must be a different kind of role to play. And also that Sandy Cohen has been the greatest fictional dad of all time, and Jimmy among the worst. Throughout the entire series, he pretty much begs his children to burden him with all their major life problems. I love that. He's all in on being a family man. So Dan wanted to send that message. But yeah, While You Were Sleeping, was any...
Well, I mean, that was a similar thing. They sort of changed the script. We read one script and then got to the table read in Chicago, and the script was completely changed. And I had a meeting with all the guys, and they were really intent on making my character an awful, awful, detestable person. And I said, why? What's he guilty of? He's successful in business, and he's not ready to get married yet. Do you know anybody like that? All the guys, they were like that. So why make him disgusting? Just have the audience rejoice for his sake and for her sake when he doesn't marry her. You know, that he's not equipped, but it doesn't mean we have to. Why depress the story with a character, a supporting character that's, that. And so they were open to that. And also, it's where I became friends with Peter Boyle. And Jack Warden and I would go to, he couldn't really do much because he had bone on bone in his ankles and his feet because of war injuries in Korean War. And Boyle and I were like, separated at birth brothers, two Irish Catholic guys. Yeah. And we would just roll around Chicago trying to get into trouble. And of course, never. We were like, lived like monks. And but it was the beginning of our friendship, which lasted a long time.
Right.
So I remember that. And everybody was great.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the best. That's why we do what we do. We're not, there's a lot of human connection on sets, and you gain lifelong.
Right. And the quality of the experience is not necessarily directly related to the success of the outcome.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Yeah. 2 quick more questions. Please tell Peter, this is from Steven. I say congratulations for making me jump on the second jump scare in his movie Mother's Boys, 1993, and ask him if he can comment on his character or co-stars Jamie Lee Curtis and Joanne Whaley. Wally.
Well, that's not House on Holland Hill. That was Mother's Boys.
It says Mother's Boys.
Oh, Mother's Boys. Oh, right.
Are they both in that?
Yes, they are. Yes.
I have some obscure films that you've done, right?
Yeah.
Well, not obscure, but
well, apparently. No, that was the thing I remember was I had 3 boys. Joanne, Wally Kilmer, and I were married, and I think Jamie Lee Curtis and I had been married. I can't quite remember, but I remember we had 3 boys, and I was driving around in like a station wagon with the 3 boys. They were young boys, and oh my God, I was having so much fun with these boys. We were singing crazy like young boys songs.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and we had just had Jamie, so Paula was just had a brand new baby at home, and I call up, honey. I am having so much fun. We got 3 boys here in the back of the car. Maybe we should have a bigger family. She said, when you can get pregnant.
Yeah.
And I worked, you know what? And Joanne Wally Kilmer, I worked with also on The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Oh, yeah.
And she's just marvelous. And Jamie Lee Curtis was just marvelous. Yeah. And also, I think, was Vanessa Redgrave in that movie?
Huh.
Maybe she was in Mother's Boys too, and she was, and I worshipped Vanessa Redgrave, and I got to meet her, and I think it was that movie. So it's like anything else; it's the people.
Yeah, and you're pretty great to work with. So I'm going to end with one last question that I always ask anybody that I'm been interviewing, but also it actually came from Christian over on Patreon, and he said Peter started in Broadway hair. In hair, and then he went to Grease. But I want to ask Peter, what advice would he give his younger Broadway self? And I just always ask, do you have any advice for your younger self? Or what would you tell your younger self if you could today? It's going to be okay. Yeah. Just keep showing up. And I think the regrets I have are the times I didn't say yes, and say yes and show up. Be fearless. Yeah. And, but I got those first 2 jobs from an open calls, where you're number 2,000 something, you big blocks long line. I didn't know a soul. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how anything worked. I didn't know anything. I didn't have an agent for the first 3 jobs. I just started pounding the pavement. Read backstage in show business and just go to this address and clutching your headshot and your resume, special skills, driving, and sing your 4 bars, and you put it's a big yellow legal pad, and you put your name at the end of the list, and I was always number 2,000 something in each of these things, and you get on the end of a blocks long line, and wait, and you don't move until 10 a.m. when the door opens, and then you just inch forward, and after about 6 hours or so, you get to the little tiny room and sing your 4 bars. And what's interesting is one of the first ones I had was for Grease. And then I got the hair job, and I got into the little studio, and I was going to sing. It was a 50s song, and I was going to shtick it up with all this stuff and make it memorable. And I heard this guy in front of me. He sounded amazing, and I almost left because I'll never be that good. But I just decided, just sing it like you mean it. And I went in, and Phyllis Grandy was playing piano, and Vinnie Liff was there, big-time Broadway casting director, and I sang Put Your Head on My Shoulder. And he looked at me and says, that was beautiful. And my knees buckled, my eyes filled with tears, and I almost fell over, and I didn't. And I thought, I don't need the job, but
you just gave me reason to keep showing up because I think one of the greatest things you can do for anybody anytime is give them reason to believe they're not crazy. And he did that. And the irony of it is that Tara Rubin, who cast me in Left on 10th, started her career with Vinnie Liff in his office. And so it's all about the people.
Yeah. And you love showing up.
I do, because you never know what's going to happen. But if you don't, not much is going to happen. No. And, that's big.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mindy.
I just want to remind people that Left on 10th, tickets are on sale now and can be purchased on telecharge.com via phone at 212-239-6200 or by visiting lefton10thbroadway.com. And for more, please go to the website, lefton10thbroadway.com, or follow at Left on 10th on Instagram and Threads, and at Left on 10th Play on Facebook, Twitter, X, and TikTok. Just had to get that out.
Come see us.
Peter Gallagher, NYC. Got to see him in person. Do the same. We love you.
I love you too.
Yeah. Bye.